If you want the seams on the back of your Firebird to be this clean and looking this good, well, stay tuned. You're at the right place. We are this close to putting some paint on this car here, and a few little details need taken care of first here. The seams on the filler panel, then the seams here around the tail panel. And if you want yours to look super clean like this, you are at the right place. Check out this video. We keep the seam sealer down in the groove where it needs to be, not up on the body panel. So when it's painted, it looks very clean and similar to factory, maybe a little better. And even the same thing here in the trunk jam. Just enough here to fill in the gap. We don't like the stuff all mopped on and sloppy all over the place. And here, even here on the tail panel where it meets the quarter panel, just enough to fill in the seam so you don't have a void, because there's supposed to be a gap down here. This is normal and correct, but you don't want that black line showing up in here or a pocket where it's not sealed up. So how do I get it to look like this? Well, stay tuned. It's not an overly complicated procedure. My favorite stuff called masking tape. You actually line each side of it here, and you tuck it in the actual groove where it needs to be and use the masking tape to keep it where you don't want it. I'll go ahead and mask these areas off and show you how that's done and just how easy this really is. All right, first thing, we've already cleaned this seam all out, wiped it out with wax and grease remover. So we're going to run the tape here just parallel on each side, just a little bit down into the groove. That way when it's all said and done, the edge, or the tape line, if there is any, is down inside the channel. So here on the opposite side. Put one here on the back just for good measure. Now the top I'm not too horribly worried about. Now if this wasn't a vinyl top car, I'd go all the way there into the glass channel. But vinyl top car, I like saying that. Oh, starting to set up a little bit here. Alright. Yeah, it looks awful because, well, I'm not no professional at this part, but just need enough to fill in the channel. And literally tuck it into place here. One more time. And simple as this. Simple as that. That seam is done. We'll do the same thing here to the tail panel. And this works on the same principle. I'm going to run tape on both sides. Basically, put the tape where I don't want the seam sealer to go. Now, in this case, it has some goofy radiuses and funny shapes. It's not as easy just to slap the tape on, but it's okay. Put the tape close, take your razor blade, cut the opening, and then you should be able to put the seam sealer on about the same way. And then if you do make a mistake and accidentally get some seam sealer where you don't want it, as long as it hasn't really dried entirely, you can normally hit it with some either acetone or lacquer thinner. Lightly, you can rub off the areas that you don't want it to be stuck to. So I'll go ahead and get this all set up. This is where a new razor blade is not a bad idea. Now, of course, this is inside the trunk jam, so not everybody's ever going to see it, but I just don't like the stuff all mopped on there all crazy. So, and this only takes a few minutes. Part's done. Now we'll do here on the tail panel around that radius on the quarter panel. And the same thing, I want it's kind of a radius into the channel or the groove. I want the tape to go down into that just a little bit. I don't want it at the surface because I don't want to put the seam seal on and actually blend the quarter panel to the tail panel and actually make it look smooth. I still want it to look like an indent or a seam. I don't want to level it all off. So I try to tuck the tape into the channel just ever so slightly. Here I'm actually tucking it all the way in there, and then what I'll do is I'll cut this out and pull that out of the way, and then we'll do the outside. And that's actually behind the bumper, so that's okay if it gets a little crazy. I'll just come through here. Alright, now I'll do the same thing here to the outside and get it all ready to go. And bam, just like that, the outside is done just the same. Let me show you up here close what we were actually trying to combat. You can see the little black line here between the quarter panel and the tail panel. We just have that gap. We're wanting to fill that seam in. And even here on the back on the tail panel, we got a few spots right there where there's still just a slight gap. Metal work was really good on this car, but it's not perfect. There's no way to make it perfect. That's why they put a little seam sealer here, but we don't have to get carried away. So now I'll go ahead and coat my little layer inside here, smear it out, pull the tape, and see what she looks like. Now this is just a one-part seam sealer, like a caulking tube. It's nothing super fancy. Just get it from my local body shop supply store here, and I seem to like it. It works pretty good. So we'll just do the same thing. Paint a little bit here in the channel, smear it out, and we should be all right. Now again, I don't seam seal the bottom. I like leaving that gap. All that trouble to get that metal looking good. I don't want to fill it in with seam sealer and lose that groove or that gap. All right. Now just make sure he's all tucked up where it needs to be. Like I said, if we make a mistake, it's no big deal. You can catch that stuff with a quick little hit of acetone on a shop rag, smooth the edge out, get his gold. I think that's going to do it. Put a little spot right there. Well, I need to get right here behind the bumper on that gummy. And there, now that looks good. Okay, now that's the cool part. Right there, we got a little bit of a string right there. Like I said, not the end of the world. All right. We got a little bit there I goobered up on. Not the end of the world, a little bit right here. Grab my lacquer. This is actually acetone. A little acetone. A little dab on the rag. And just wipe it clean. round off any of the edges if there was any. Now sometimes acetone will soften up your primer. This is that high build stuff I tried. I really like this stuff. It's pretty durable once it's cured. Because look at this, I'm hitting it with acetone and none of it's coming off. So I'm super happy with this stuff. All right. That should do it. So what's that look like after cleaning it up? There we go. No more gap between the quarter panel and the tail panel. Nice, tight in the seam there. Once this is all painted, that'll look really nice. And even up here, just the same. Laid in there really good. So, and of course, if you look at this here, look at that color. I'll tell you, that's just a fantastic, beautiful color. And of course, I'll give you some more of the tips of the trade here. You guys can tell me what this here is for. I'll give you bonus points. And there's also one kind of here on the trunk deck. I wonder what it could be for. And the other thing I've done, notice how that trunk deck stays shut, but there's no latch. Well, what I've done, underneath this green tape here, there's a magnet. It's just strong enough to hold the trunk deck down, because what I plan to do when I paint this car, we're going to paint this trunk jam all at the same time and get it all nice and even in the color, so I don't have a tape line or dry lines or have to kind of blend out the trunk jam. So that's one of the little tips here I'm going to give you while we're messing with it. And then the other thing is, of course, I got some grief from a few folks. Why didn't I put the entire quarter panels on the car? Why did I seam them across the top? Well, this trunk gutter was in fantastic shape, and these little numbers, they mean absolutely nothing except it proves that was the original panel. Well, at least this part is. We know we sectioned it in here, but if you were to open this trunk at a car show, this car still has these little numbers stamped there, and on the filler panel, they're right here. And then here, check this out. They're still on this side. So once this is all painted, that's a little detail that's still going to be in this car. Well, that was one of the last things they need to do before we put this thing into paint. Now, I've got this weekend off of work. No promises, no guarantees, but I'm going to try to paint the bad boy here. We're going to finally make the autumn bronze color show up where it's supposed to be. I got the hood tack painted. I got a couple of small parts painted. But it is all reassembled, looking great, body gapped, everything's done, so there's no chance of me, or reduced chance of me, chipping the paint, putting it back together, because, well, it's already back together. Now, you'll see some techniques on how to get this thing painted. You've already been following the whole journey. If this is your first time stopping by, check out the seam seal video. Thank you for checking that out, but don't miss the rest of the build. This car has been a complete overhaul. Metalwork, frame rails, trunk floor, floor pans, everything has been reworked, redone. All new drivetrain taken care of too. So this is like a brand new or better than new car. But so you don't want to miss it. We're going to be painting the Great Pumpkin very soon. I'll be grabbing the camera and we'll see you guys then.